Roger. Ready to move out.
These niggas thinking they easy out here.
Hey, and welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka the Batman. Hey, listen, we're gonna get into a topic that that is pretty much talk of the country, and it is the number of school shootings just in this year alone. But first, I want to do a PSA. About a week ago, here in the city of Chicago, there was a child abduction. And what happened with this situation here is that this is a prime example of a systematic breakdown. Last week, a mother was on a supervised visit with her infant child. The social worker or the guardian who was supposed to be supervising the visits was apparently distracted, and the mother zipped away, ran away with this infant child who she's not supposed to have custody of because the child was in the care of foster parents. Now, the child is African-American as well as the mother's African-American, and they were last seen on the west side of Chicago. If you have any information, please contact Area North CPD, that's Chicago Police Department, Area North, if you have any information about these two individuals. But the sad part about this is a primary example of the breakdown. It is alleged that the supervisor, the social worker, the care, they're supposed to be watching, she was occupied watching a movie on her phone. Now, I said distracted because I wanted you to think about that word. That's not a distraction. That's just someone not caring about the job and the welfare of this child. And this goes on all too. This is all too familiar inside DCFS, where somebody drops the ball. Somebody's not paying attention, or they are awarding children to parents who should not have them. Now, this child has been missing for exactly 1 week. This happened last Monday. But if, like I said, and I repeat, if you have any information on these two individuals that are missing, I'm sure you've all seen on the news, please contact Chicago Police Department, Area North. You can find it in your telephone book, or simply call 911. But getting into what we're going to talk about tonight, the rash of school shootings. Now, just last week we had another school shooting. Now, according to information, that this is and I kid you not, the 22nd school shooting we have had in this country. The 22nd school shooting. And this was just here, and this was just in Santa Fe, Texas. Okay, yeah, 17-year-old by the name of Demetrius, and I'm not going to even make an attempt to try to pronounce his name, but anywho, the 17-year-old had access to firearms, a shotgun and a 38 caliber gun. And the sad part about this, and I'm going to throw these Texans under the bus here. You know, those people down there in Texas are absolutely nuts. Everybody down there has a gun. And the sad part about that is that Texas, along with this country, the United States, has a love affair with firearms. And they've had this love affair for firearms since projectile and gunpowder were put together. They've had this love affair with it. So in the process of doing that, they enacted the Second Amendment rights, which is the right to bear arms. Okay. Now, that's all fine and good if you are a responsible individual who wants to have a gun. Me myself, I'm I respect those who have firearms, but we have to also look at the fact of those who should not be in possession of them. We have to understand that. Now, when we talk about these school shootings, and the first thing people want to say is that this individual was a loner, or he was this, or he was that, or he had some form of mental issues, or whatever the case may be. We can't always blame someone's conscious act on mental illness. It's one thing to say that this person is mentally ill if they decide they're going to rub peanut butter and whipped cream all over their body, running down the street with a fork sticking out of their head and a feather bow sticking out their ass. That's you may say, okay, yes, he's a little bit off the track. But when you consciously decide, I'm going to get up, take the handguns that are in my home, or take the handguns out of a locked cabinet, load them up, sit down and systematically make out a plan on how you're going to not shoot or kill, but to systematically execute another human being, there's no mental illness there. This 17-year-old boy, and I'm not going to say child, but a 17-year-old boy, shot and killed 10 people. Shot and killed 10 people. One of which was a young lady who was 15. And this was and from all indications and reports is that he stalked this young lady. This young lady didn't want to have anything to do with him. She basically resisted his advances, but he just kept pushing, and he pursued her for the last 4 months. Okay. This is a form of fatal attraction. This is someone that just made up in their mind this is what they're going to do, because she was the first one that was shot and killed. He stormed into the art class and just began opening fire, striking this young woman 4 times. He knew exactly what he was doing, and then continued shooting other individuals. This is not mental illness. This is a conscious decision on what he wants to do. Not only that, but as he stalked the halls shooting people, he was humming the tune, "Another One Bites the Dust." Another one bites the dust. Okay. And the first thing we want to do is yell mental illness. Yeah, because you know why we want to do that? Because it's relatively easy and simple and say, oh my gosh, this guy was absolutely crazy. His parents claim, and I say claim because I'm not there, you're not there, none of us are there when they're dealing with this boy. And they say, well, they had no indication that he would do something like that. See, that's the first word that white people always say when their child or their offspring does something of this magnitude. We had no idea that he was going to do that. Yeah. See, here's the thing about Texas. See, in Texas, you learn to shoot as soon as you're able to hold a spoon. This is what happens. Everybody in Texas has a gun. You go to Texas right now, everybody has a gun or a truck, and the two go to hand in hand, guns and trucks. They got the gun rack mounted right behind the driver's seat for quick and easy access. Make no mistake about that. Make no mistake about that. Texas has the most guns than any state in the union. The most guns. And not to mention that Texas is an open carry state also. So if you don't know what that means, or open carry, that means that it's the wild, wild west down there. That means you can carry a sidearm on your hip and everybody can see it. And the idea is that someone's less likely to accost you and give you an issue, because you're about to give them the what for and how come. But when we talk about this situation here, I'm gonna jump back to about maybe 20 years to Columbine. I believe Columbine was 1999, something like that. And if you remember, if you remember when that situation happened, Columbine, you had two students once again claiming, they say, oh, these two individuals are mentally ill. These are two students that sat down and devised a plan, and their idea was to create as much carnage as they possibly could inflict. Carnage, going from room to room, stalking individuals. They stalked human beings like they were stalking deer and executing them. See, the funny part about that is that as of yet, and I say as of yet, you haven't heard of any blacks going to a school, losing their sugar honey iced tea, and shooting up a school. No, no, we just see. Sometimes you could. We're not wired that way, and I say that rhetorically because it's not. First of all, we already have enough problems to deal with being shot by the police. That's the last thing we want to do is create a situation where they can come in and execute us and say and rule it as justifiable homicide. Justifiable homicide. Now, this guy in Texas, this is where this happened in Santa Fe, Texas. Um, he's looking at 10 counts of capital murder. And make no mistake, Texas has the death penalty. One of the few states that still executes people. One of the few. So it's almost to a point. It's kind of redundant. Say, well, he's got 10 counts of capital murder. I mean, you can only kill him once. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to resurrect him and then kill him again? I'd like to see that. That'd be a first for me or anybody else that happen to be within an earshot of that. Totally a first. But when we talk about the school shootings, we're talking about Columbine. We're talking about Sandy Hook. We just recently had a shooting here the day before the Santa Fe incident in Dixon, where a high school senior uh, was about to enter the school and create a mass casualty situation. But that situation was, but the resource officer who was assigned to that school accosted the gunman, and they exchanged gunfire, and he struck the gunman, which is a far cry from the situation that happened in Parkland in February, I believe, March. It happened in Parkland, where the resource officer or the school resource officer or the security, who is a deputy sheriff, who hid while people were being systematically executed. And not to mention, this dude is, now that this has happened and he's retired. Believe it or not, this dude is retired, a former deputy sheriff, and this guy is receiving a monthly pension of $8,700, 8742, 8742 to be exact. So if you do the math for 12 months, this guy is raking in over $100,000 a year. You know what? I hope he sleeps well. I hope I hope he's able to sleep really well, knowing that he did not do anything to save the lives of those individuals that lost their lives and did not confront the gunman as the other resource officer did here in Dixon, Illinois. Now, when we get into that, when we talk about the gun control, now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about where the NRA comes in, and where we have a lot of outcry about we need to do more about gun control. We have to understand, it's not about gun control. It's not about legislation. You can put a police officer in every school in America. That still will not stop the violence of school shootings, because why? You cannot determine what is in someone's mind when they wake up the next morning. We don't know what's going to be in somebody's mind tomorrow when they get up and decide they're going to do this. So it's relatively redundant to say legislate to increase legislation, stricter gun laws, or the real thing what they're working on is trying to take guns away from people to where it's only where guns will only belong to the military and police. And then when you have that type of society where the military and the police are only ones that have guns, that turns into that's a dictatorship. But some people, and then unfortunately, this is part of white America, will say, well, you know what? I would rather give up a little bit of my freedom for safety. No, you don't. No, you don't. Trust me and believe me, you don't want to do that. Because see, if you give a little bit, if you're talking about giving up a little bit of your safety for a little bit of your freedom for a little bit of safety, what happens is they begin to backdoor you on other things. Well, we're going to take away this, we're going to take away this, and we're going to take away this until you have nothing. We have to be careful in what we're asking for. Now, the NRA, which if you're not sure, we're not talking about the National Restaurant Association, we're talking about the National Rifle Association. They are it is a non-for-profit organization that are advocate for gun rights. They are the basically bread and butter of guns. The bread and butter. Almost nothing gets by them with if it's involving guns, they know about it. If it involves manufacturing, they know about it. They know about it. The current president right now, the current president of the NRA or the National Rifle Association is a former military man by the name of Oliver North. A lot of you probably don't remember this guy, but this was a guy that got caught up in a scandal years ago and was actually court-martialed, put on trial, and pretty much ran out of the service. But in my opinion, what better person to have as the president of the NRA is a military man, because he totally understands the ramification of taking guns away from people, but at the same time he understands the need for people to have them. He understands that. You have to put people in place who understands the full demographics of what what and why this is and how it is. We totally need to know and understand that. The NRA is 146 years old. It was started in 1871. Now, what a lot of you don't know, and this is the part where I talk about Republicans and Democrats, okay? When the NRA when it really began to take form during 1870, 1871, the NRA, and this was short, and this was only 6 years after slavery had ended, and the Civil War, that the NRA had actually lobbied for blacks to have firearms. They lobbied for them. They encouraged blacks, former slaves, black free, and even there were some that were still working as slaves after the fact, but they encouraged them to have firearms. This, and they explained this to them so they can protect themselves from individuals, from the Southern Democrats, because the NRAs was started by Republicans, the very same people who helped abolish slavery, who are pretty much who are the oil the grease the oil that greases the wheels. That's what I'm trying to say. The oil that greases the wheels that are beneficial for some of us even today. And these are some of the individuals. Now we not to get too far off track. The first thing what people want to say is, well, what have Republicans done for black people? Well, here's the thing. You have to understand something. They're the ones that, and they, even though they press the issue of abolishing slavery, but we can't forget the fact that this was a financial gain for them. because they were suffering, and we needed to do something to break up the Southern Democrats. But when they started introducing firearms or saying to blacks about firearms, about having a gun to protect yourself, this is what made the white Democrat fearful. Fearful. If you want to join in this conversation about school shootings and the NRA, give me a call here at the show at 708-223-8953 to join in this topic. We're talking about school shootings and the NRA. How beneficial is it to have, and how do we deal with the onslaught of the school shootings? Now, uh, I'm fortunate that my children are grown. I have, and I still have a college son. My son's I got a college son, but at the same time, none of us are impervious to these particular things. You hope and pray that they don't happen, or they don't have a situation at your child's preschool, kindergarten, elementary, high school, college campus. You're praying that those things don't happen, but we can't be naive to the fact that these people, not entities, these people are out there, and we have to remember something. And the NRA will say this, and any responsible gun owner will say this: guns don't kill people. Stupid people with guns kill people. Make no mistake, a gun can't shoot it. A gun cannot discharge itself. It needs a little help. It needs a little help to achieve that. The United States is a gun culture, and we have to also put this into play. The United States is a gun culture, and it always has been, and it always will be. Make no mistake that guns will never go away. Whether they decide to take them from us, or whether they decide to restrict, or whether they decide to decide on how they're going to be distributed. But it's like driving a car. You have to be responsible. Having a driver's license, when they say it's a driver's license or driving, period, it is not a right. It is a privilege. Meaning they don't have to give it to you. On the flip side, when they say gun rights, you are afforded that in the Constitution, the right to bear arms. Gun laws are put on the books for the people who are misusing firearms, not for people who are using them justifiably, or who are using them the way they're supposed to be using. Now, one thing I will say that I do not agree with is that I don't see the reason or the purpose for a civilian to be in possession of a high-powered rifle, such as an M4, such as an AK-47, such as a M16, things of that nature. And things that I don't see the need for that to be in the hands of a civilian. You're not hunting. If you're using a M4 to hunt deer, there's nothing going to be left. Absolutely nothing. Shotguns either way. But when you're using a rapid fire weapon, what do you need that for? Or as we used to say years ago when I was coming up, we used to call them choppers. Because when they let go, they cut you in half. Exactly what they do. It's exactly what they do. I don't see the need for them. I really don't. But under the Second Amendment, we have the right to have them. We have the right to have them. It's nothing wrong with owning a gun. It's nothing wrong with having a gun. It's just how you use that gun in whatever in the capacity that you do. We're not saying, when and at the same time, when we go into talking about gun advocacy and being in possession of a firearm, yes, we know that right now that under the law that a felon cannot be in possession of a firearm. We know that, but here's the scary part. There are more felons that are in possession of firearms than there are legitimate citizens. And that's only made by straw buyers, shady gun dealers, buying handguns online, and sometimes even transferring a handgun from a firearm from one person to another without doing the proper and necessary paperwork. You could tell a person, well, you can come in and buy a firearm and you got a 72-hour waiting period, or you got to wait for this, you got to wait for that. We're going to do a background. We're going to do all the necessary vetting. But at the same time, if this person has never been arrested, if he's never been diagnosed with any form of mental illness, if he's never had any of these issues, how do you know that this person is going to use a firearm responsibly? It's no different than drinking. No different than drinking. I know. I will tell anybody. Somebody asks me a question. Yeah, do you drink? I sure do. I most certainly do. But I do it responsibly. I do it responsibly and in moderation. That's what I do. And it's the same thing if you're in possession of a car. It's the same thing if you are in possession of a firearm. You have to treat that responsibly. I'm gonna tell you a small story. And a lot of you that they're listening and that know me, that I play a police, on different shows, because I'm an actor also. But on different shows, independent and things of that nature, I play a police officer. But at the same time, I'm treating that firearm with respect. I'm conducting myself and I'm being responsible. I can't tell you how many times that I've been on set and seeing some sea donkey, some jackass playing with the firearm, prop or not. You are to be responsible. You treat that firearm with respect. You treat it as if it is real. We can't talk about how many times a small child has gotten into gotten his hands on a firearm and wind up discharging it, possibly shooting himself or someone else. This is the issue. This is the age-old issue that we're going to constantly run across: levels of responsibility. You could have 30 guns. I don't care. But you have to be responsible. There's levels of responsibility that comes with that. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. Great responsibility. And this is where we're at with this. The fact of the matter that no one is taking responsibility. This 17-year-old kid, Demetrius, and I have a tough time pronouncing his name. Do we blame his parents? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so, because this is something that he consciously sat down and decided that he wanted to do. Do we blame the kid down there in Dixon? No. Do we blame him? We put the responsibility on him, but we can't blame the people that are around him. These are conscious decisions. The moment that you take that firearm in your hand and you want to pull the trigger, you have made up in your mind, this is what you want to do. Not your mama, not your daddy, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, cousin, niece, or nephew. You've made that decision. And understand something. When you discharge that firearm and that bullet leaves that chamber, that bullet leaves that barrel, you can't call it back. You can't. Once it leaves, it's gone. And the damage that it can do can be catastrophic. can be catastrophic. Hey, but we're gonna take us a break here on iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Ron. Hey, if you guys want some really good chicken, check out my man. Check out Captain Hooks he's got two locations and a third soon to follow. Check out Captain Hooks on 85th and Cottage Grove. His second location is 15922 South Kedzie in Markham. And his third location, which will be opening July 1st, is at 103rd. If you really want some good chicken, really, really good fish, tilapia perch, or cat. And if that's in shrimp, if that's what you're into, but check them out. Hey, Nubian Beauty of Hair. Check out their website at luxuryhairdirect.com// Nubian 4 dot. Remember, put the dot at the end of that 4. Okay. Call us here at the station if you want to join in this conversation at 708-223-8953, the Chronicles of Ron.
Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
These niggas thinking they crazy out here. Now bounce. Y'all gotta pardon me tonight. I feel like a superhero up in here. When the spinner gotta get him like new shit. They call me Batman, cause the black mask is on my face. Gun up on my waist, booted and suited in them black case. I'm looking for some hood rats that I take to the back cave. Y'all lame like blank man, while I'm steady serving them like pistol on my utility belt. Like, yeah, I keep my identity to myself. Like, you don't want me to grab that thing from the shelf. Like, I call them robbing, cause that's my only help, right? Okay. Girls hit my bat signal when they know that I'm coming. I say I ain't here for nothing, now give me that cat woman. As soon as we started stomach pumping, somebody had started thumping. She jumped up and caught her breath like, did you hear something? As soon as I get near to y'all, you want me to get into y'all. I ain't trying to tease them, play with your mind like the
Hey, and welcome back to iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Ron. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, a.k.a. The Bad Man. Hey, listen, we are talking about the school shootings and the NRA. Now, I want to delve into something relatively quick. Delve into this right quick here. Years ago, during the early part of the 60s, going into the 70s, the United States were experimenting with mind-altering drugs. What they were doing is that they would take a group of soldiers and they would inject them with a chemical to alter their minds, to actually control them through particular smells, through sounds, through particular words, basically creating sleepers, to where what the test that they would run is that they would conduct would be that they would have these soldiers shoot, stab, and strangle each other under the command of a smell or of a sound or of a particular word. If you are a movie buff, watch this movie. But you have to watch the original movie. It's called The Manchurian Candidate, which stars Lawrence Harvey, Angela Lansbury, and Frank Sinatra. And that tells the story of what I just spoke on how the government manipulated these individuals to create what they call a super soldier. And so what they did, and then they made a remake several years later with Liv Schreiber and Denzel Washington of the same title. But what we're looking at now is that here we are. You have to ask yourself, why are there so many school shootings? We've had, like I said, we've had 22 in just 5 months. 22. So we have to ask ourselves this question. Is this a bigger picture? Is there something going on that we are not privy to? You damn right it is. These particular things, and if you have, and we have to, as I say, sometimes we have to give the ridiculous a try, because I believe, because when you do, you will find the truth. You'll find a lot of truth in it. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's jump into this, that the United States is conducting secret experiments to create enough catastrophic tyranny, enough chaos to circumvent the Constitution, to take away your rights by means of fear. And that's the way to do it. Let's say that this individual was an individual that they have done an experiment on by using a solution for mind altering drugs. Let's say, for the sake of argument. Hey, good evening. Welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. Who do I have on the phone, and where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Hello?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you hear? This is Jay from Georgia.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. So just kind of touching base with your conversation tonight. So yes, let's look at it for the reality of what it is. This whole thing with gun control is an agenda, just like it is with the issue of privacy. So the government has been trying to get access to your privacy for over 50 years now. So they couldn't do it legally until they created a catastrophic event that allowed them to circumvent the Constitution, which is exactly what you just said. It was called September 11th. September 11th was an event that the government absolutely did orchestrate and coordinate to make sure that they will have no pushback from Congress or legislation into their complete annihilation, into the illusion of privacy that the Constitution helped to maintain. Because make no mistake about it, CIA, FBI, NSA, DEA, all of those organizations at many different times had already been intrusive into your conversations, intrusive into your dealings. They just had no legal standing on how they could completely proceed into those avenues without a warrant. So everything that they found, everything that they were per se tipped off on, had no legal standing because there was no warrant in place. So after September 11th, where they took in the Privacy Act, and they made that now the law of the land. Hey, we can do this because it's for the use of homeland security. And they eat new organization, which was supposed to handshake between every other 7 other organizations that pre-existed to help vet all of these different organizations and possible terroristic threats. And guess what? 17 years later, the same problems are still happening. And I'm saying terroristic incidents. I'm saying incidents where people are supposed to be vetted, things are supposed to be properly filtered and searched, it still falls through the crack. Look at what happened in Florida. Now, this guy went on YouTube, went on Facebook, went on several social media outlets. The FBI was given well advanced, was given several tips, and they deemed them non-credible. So this whole thing with gun control, because I'm going to really wrap this up in a bow, nice and pretty for you. This whole thing with gun control is yet another attack on another safeguard that was supposed to be put and maintained by the Constitution. And if you notice, The weapon even changed. So instead of it being an AR-15 or some sort of high-powered assault rifle, we went straight old school with shotguns and revolvers. So there was no mistake about who was really to blame, which is the NRA, the National Rifle Association, who has been very adamant about protecting people's Second Amendment rights as long as there are responsible gun owners. Now, here's another little tip for you. Most people don't understand that the National Rifle Association was actually a strong advocate for the African American post-Civil War, because the safeguards and any of the protection that was provided for the freed slaves or the freed emancipated slaves, because I won't call them citizens because we're still not that, was removed from federal protection with the laws of 1876 and 1886, where federal troops were removed from every southern state so that the South could run like it always had. But organizations, which now became the National Rifle Association, helped for these folks to learn how to use weapons and learn how to be a semi-militia type organization without the guise of being a militia organization. Just teaching them, look, man, here's how you need to defend yourself against these crackers. Because they coming for you, and we don't necessarily know we're gonna be here for you, but you need to have a gun.
Right, and let me jump in right quick, because I'm glad you mentioned that too, and that was almost indicative of what you just of Nat Turner when they discovered a cache of weapons at Harper's Ferry, or so they thought. And once they got wind that, hey, we can get these weapons, we can get them, and as I said earlier in the show, and I believe you, I hope you heard this, is that we have to fully understand is that, remember, the Republicans, keyword, and I'm gonna say this again, and I can't stress this enough, is that the Republicans were our biggest advocates on a lot of things. The Democrats,
the Republican was your only advocate. First of all, any person of African.
Hello? Up.
Okay.
No. I'm sorry, caller. Georgia. Repeat what you just said, because we lost you.
Okay. So, and it's really interesting that you lose me in that, but I'll digress. The Democrats used to be called Dixiecrats, which meant that they were from the southern states predominantly, right along the line of the Mason-Dixon line, which is why they called it Dixie. So most Democrats were called Dixiecrats because the lines of partisanism were starchly set north against south. Democrat in the south, Republican to most of the northern states. We have to understand that. It was a Republican Congress and a Republican president that pushed the legislation to have the Emancipation Proclamation signed and enforced. It was a Republican Congress. Let me also say this, that after the Civil War and into the Reconstruction years, it was the Republican Party that installed many educated and progressive blacks in many houses of Congress in the South to help keep them afloat and to help restructure them. It was not until the election of 1876 when the black man was depicted as the Republican demagogue, and the Democrats were depicted as the Southern gentleman who was going to restore order and or any sort of civility to the deplorable and decayed South, which should have been decayed because of the simple fact of, listen, anytime you have the cancer of racism, that cancer destroys you. It emasculates you. America, if it had not dealt with the issue of the Civil War, would look much like a person who has died from cancer and has endured chemotherapy. If you've never seen a person like that when they are freshly dead, then you'll never understand the full volume and weight of what racism and the despicableness of slavery was going to do to this country.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 minutes. And I will just say this whole gun control thing, because that's really what I wanted to talk about, this agenda. And the poor children and the poor people who are caught in the crosshairs, these are lambs for the slaughter that are purposefully picked. And I feel for the families, but we have to understand that these people are perfectly picked for this agenda. And the agenda is to remove guns from the civilians so that now government has ultimate control. And at that point, it's we get all of the power and we can execute at will. We've seen this before. Look at Germany. Look at Yugoslavia. Look at Poland. Look at Czechoslovakia. Look at the Ukraine. Look at
China.
Chechnya. I'm not going that far back from China, but let's look at Chechnya. Let's look at right around when the Clintons were in office and they had to go over in Bosnia. And the key word to remember here, there's two public enemies that they can't no longer say, but it is the gun owner and the Muslim. And if they can just keep those two tied together, then America will go wherever they want them to go. But for some reason, they can't keep the narrative straight. But those are the two enemies in America, the Muslim and the gun owner. And if we can just tie them two together, we can clean this stuff up and get it in a bowl and make America great again. And I hate to use that phrase, but that's the agenda that these people are utilizing. And it's bigger than Trump. If you think that Trump is the problem, you're the biggest fool this side of heaven. It's not him. Unfortunately, he is the marshal. And if you've ever seen a marshal in a parade, he's just the guy that's carrying the baton that's ushering in a whole new level of what is to be seen in months to come. That's my 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Georgia. And every time Georgia calls in, there's always some enlightenment that he leaves us with, or information that we fail to realize or fail to read upon or be to be part of. And he's absolutely right. There's a bigger picture in this. There's a bigger picture. When we have the United States shipping guns to foreign countries, but they're yet and still, these are some of the same people that say we want gun change in legislation. This is what he's talking about. This is the things that we're discussing. It's an old thing that we used to say. We say that your grandparents used to say, throw a rock and hide your hand. And that's the United States. And they're notorious for doing that. We have to look at the bigger picture of what is actually happening and going on. The unfortunate part when you have these events, mass casualty shootings, and I say mass casualties, this is a par for the course. These are sacrificial lambs. When you are trying to get something out of someone, as he indicated with 9/11, the only way that you could create the entities such as the DHS, was the Department of Homeland Security, and scare money out of Congress, is that you had to create something so catastrophic, so unbelievable, and the mass casualties had to be unfathomable, that this was what you have to do. And this is how you do this. Even faith wars have casualties. Faith wars have casualties. These are sacrificial lambs, and these individuals, as cruel as it may sound, but I keep it real. I keep it real. I keep it real. These people were sacrificed. Parkland in Florida, Sandy Hook, Santa Fe, and any other school that this has happened at. These are not just particular things at random. This is systematically done. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. It's unfortunate that a lot of us, that if you're listening, that some of us probably still have school age children, and we kind of have, we don't ever want to get that horrific phone call that there's a shooting at the school and the school is on lockdown, or your child is there. It's the most horrific, the most horrific thing that a parent could possibly endure. But we have to look at the real picture and what is going on. You create enough enough massive carnage to where people will start to give in on what they want. They would rather give up a little bit of their freedom for a little bit of safety. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm not giving up anything, and I'm not moving 1 inch. I'm not giving up any of my freedom for a little bit of safety. We're just going to have to go toe to toe and go to the fence. And as they say, it's one of us. It's going to be me and you, and the damn sure ain't going to be me. Trust and believe that. Trust and believe that. You best believe that. But you know what, y'all? That is my time here tonight on the Chronicles of Rohn here at iHeart Intellectual. And in closing, let me give a shout out to my sponsors once again, Nubian Beauty of Hair. Check out their fabulous check out their fabulous products on their website at luxuryhairdirect.com/Nubian4. Remember to put the dot on the end of that 4. And if you're looking at maybe getting a summer job or being a bus driver, check out First Student. First Student are looking for drivers. Give them a call at their South Holland Glenwood location at 708-210-2200. That's 708-210-2200. And with that being said, hey, oh, by the way, next week is Memorial Day. Hey, if you all have loved ones that served in any particular war, make sure you honor them. Make sure you honor them. Hey, you guys, and because you'll see me in 2 weeks. I'll be back June 4th. And with that being said, not my monkey, not my circus. See y'all in 2 weeks.
Y'all gotta pardon me tonight. I feel like a superhero up in here.